I never thought she'd buy a house. Credit was rough, a lot of debt, no money, her income was low. And I really just thought, like, I'm going to meet with you and you'll be on your way. And she said to me, we immigrated here and it's my dream to buy a home for my parents. If you were in my shoes, what would you do? I said something that I thought maybe it'll offend her, but it didn't. I said I would find a new job because you're not making enough. And then I would pay off some of this debt. And she did it. And a year and a half later, she went from making like 30 grand a year to 85. And a year and a half later, she bought a house. So it changed my perspective from this person can never buy a house to everyone can buy a house if they follow my plan.
We love the San Gabriel Valley. There are some amazing people and businesses here, and we think they deserve the spotlight. Welcome to the SGV Master Key Podcast. We'll have on the people that make the SGV great. We'll find out what makes them tick, their ups and downs, their history, and we're going to have fun doing it. This is the SGV Master Key Podcast. And now your hosts, Scott Warmoth and Russell Mano.
All right, SGVers, welcome back to another episode of the SGV Master Key Podcast. Thank you for tuning in. If you like to hear stories about the people right here in the San Gabriel Valley, what we do, we share and document the stories of the people who make up this great community. If you like that, don't forget to like, share, subscribe. And if you're a returning listener, thank you for returning to us. And we're excited to bring you another episode here. Scott, I mentioned to you before that I owned a mortgage company for a really brief amount of time.
Yeah, actually, I do remember you had said that, but it surprised me because that's not you.
Yeah, so what it was I had been working at commercial insurance at the time, Tokyo Marine, and it took me about 3 or 4 months to realize like this was not for me. And mostly what it was because I did not respect the people who were leading at all. That was my first corporate job after college, and I was like, wow, how can this be? Having come from really outstanding leadership and then coming there, I was like, this is not for me. And so it was an opportunity to do something on my own and explore that. And for myself, what I found that I was not fulfilled after helping someone with their loan on a home. The feeling of joy was very short-lived.
You would have to go out and find and generate business.
Yes.
Find potential borrowers.
Yes.
And you didn't have the real, as you said, joy, the real passion in closing a deal.
Right. I also didn't seek out someone who had the experience in the industry. I didn't seek them out and ask them, what was it that they found joy in? Because I'm sure it's fit for somebody. I just didn't seek that out. And I thought really quickly, like, I couldn't do this for the rest of my life. And so I very quickly sought something else.
Yeah, it's that passion that we talk so much about.
Yeah.
That you have to have the passion. And there are people who have that passion for that job.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's not a knock on any job that I don't like. It's just it wasn't for me, right?
Right.
But the reason that we're talking about this is that people have passion, and I think that's the ingredient that makes them successful in whatever they do.
And not only that, but our guest today really expresses a real desire to help educate, potential borrowers, perhaps people of all types, on financial tips. And, that's his passion, and that's what would make him good at it.
Absolutely. And it's so hard to look without a referral for business or something that you needed, which is so important in who you're going to help to finance your home purchase or refinance or whatever. But, searching for things like that or other things in the community. Don't forget San Gabriel Valley Now. They're your source for city news, announcements, events, special savings, and everything SGV. Check them out on Instagram, sgv.now, and read their SGV Now magazine on their website, sgvnow.com. Well, there's a place or resource where you can find things, but I hope this is also a resource where you can get a glimpse into this genre of business, this person. So his name is Armando Novelo, and he is a loan officer. Armando, welcome to the show.
Hey, Russ, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And, so loan officer, for those who don't know, what is that?
So essentially, when someone's buying a home, unless they have a lot of money to pay cash, most of the time they're going to need some sort of financing. And we provide that financing for them.
Okay. And, your coming to the show was unique in that I think I started seeing you pop up on, viewing the stories, and I was like, okay, there's this person now who's watching consistently this stuff. How did you come to find our show?
I think you posted one with Barney Santos, and Barney and I go way back. We worked together maybe 2007, 2008 when he was in mortgages for a short period of time. So I saw it on his Instagram. I followed you, and I like what you're doing. You've had some good guests on there that I know or that I've met before. You had Joan with the B4B business, a sharp lady. I go to her meetings all the time. So I just kind of started following it, and I'm from the San Gabriel Valley. So
yeah. So before we get into that, I think you had reached out to me about wanting to learn what it was like to do a podcast. Is that right?
Correct. I'm in the process of getting one started. So right now it's only being hosted on YouTube, but the goal is to do something a little bit bigger and hopefully reach more people.
And I think that really speaks on some level to the person that you are, because, to go out, and I forget how you phrased it. You said you wanted to find out or something, learn from someone who was already doing it. Is that what you said?
Yeah, I was very lucky. A mentor early on said, if you want to do something, find someone who's doing it and just ask them for help. And sure enough, people help me all the time when I ask for help.
Oh, that's great. Well, Armando, the show is called the SGV, Master Key Podcast. What is your connection to the San Gabriel Valley? Well,
I grew up here. I'm an immigrant. I came from an immigrant family, and I grew up in Montebello, East LA, Monterey Park. And then I went to high school in West Covina, and now I run a business in West Covina. So I've my ties here, even though I wasn't born here. It's really all I know. It's my life, right?
Where is your family from?
From Mexico.
I see. And when did you come here?
So I actually came here very early in my life. I was a few days old. I was born with some medical issues that for whatever reason they couldn't handle out there. So I was brought over here kind of as an emergency. I had seizures when I was a baby. And somehow they fixed them here because I've never had a seizure again. But my parents just decided to stay here. My grandparents were here and they decided to stay. And here we are, right? I was one of those dreamers, if you will, but that didn't exist back then.
And where did your family land when they first came here?
In East LA. My grandparents lived in Montebello, and they owned a little restaurant in East LA. And we lived in Montebello until I was 14, and I moved to West Covina. I went to high school up there.
What was the restaurant?
It was called El Camino Restaurant. It was on Atlantic on Atlantic and between Beverly and Whittier. It's no longer there. There used to be a Ford dealership there, if you remember, back in the 80s and 90s. It was right down the street from the restaurant.
Okay. So you grew up in Montebello. Did you you went to high school in West Covina?
I went to West Covina High School, correct.
Oh, I guess you consider yourself, like, even though you weren't born in America, you're culturally American, or what's that like?
It's all I know, right? My Spanish isn't great. It's all I know. If you put me in Mexico, I'd be lost. So yeah, I can definitely feel for some of the people that are here that have struggled, because I live that. And it's been part of my journey, I guess, part of my life, but it's been good.
When you were growing up as a son or an immigrant family, were you aware of that growing up in Montebello?
That's really evident very quickly especially as you're getting older, when you can't do certain things because you're not here, legally. So it does make it tough to get a driver's license or apply to college or things like that, right? So when I was a kid, we kind of knew, but my mom was really good at shielding it. And really it got real when my father left. And that's when we really had to grow up and learn it's not as easy as we thought it was, right?
So are you actually a dreamer?
No, that didn't exist then.
Okay.
That came out a little bit after that, yeah.
You said your father left?
Yeah, my father one day just decided it was his time, and his family was no longer serving him, so he decided to move on, and he started a new family. So that was a shock for us. My brother was less than a year old. I was 9 years old, and my mom had no job at that point. So we struggled a little bit financially, and to go from someone who has been pretty sheltered, and my dad owned an insurance agency, so he was okay. We weren't wealthy, but to go where we're living a comfortable life to you have nothing, that's tough as a 9-year-old, and I think that's where a lot of my money hang-ups came in the early part of my life, is just that scarcity mindset that we grow up with. And that's a big part of why I like to teach people how to kind of get out of that world.
What did that do to you, though? Your father just leaving, was it that sudden?
Yeah, so I'll tell you, I've never really shared this outside of my circles, but we had a party one day, and that day my parents had a fight, and we never saw my father again. I mean, we saw him a few years later before he passed, but he just kind of went away. For a little while, he called us, once in a while, like once a week, and then those calls just kind of dwindled and stopped. A few years later, we found that he had another family and a child, interestingly enough, with his best friend's wife. So they kind of just left and started a new family. It's really weird, right?
Well, it is weird, yeah. But it's probably not really weird. I mean, the more you see in the world, these things pop up more often than you would think,
Yeah.
I mean, it's tragic. One of my best friends in high school, one day his father just left the family, and there were 6 or 7 children, and yeah, it happens in every place in society, not just one demographic or one socioeconomic group. It happens everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That seems like it must have been quite a pivotal point in your life, and there's so many directions that you could have gone, right?
Oh yeah, there definitely was. It wasn't easy, and I think that it did cause a lot of trauma and like a lot of hurt for me that it's taken me a long time to heal through. And for a long time, I was very angry. Recently, with some work that I've done, it's kind of helped me kind of get past it. And you kind of learn that forgiving someone, you're not really forgiving them. You're not forgiving them for the sake of them. You're forgiving them for the sake of yourself, right? And that was very clear a couple years ago, just through a mentor that I met that really helped me with kind of get past that.
Wow. And 9 years old too. And now you're probably having to take care of your 1-year-old brother.
Yeah, my brother and I are still very close. We still work together. But for a long time, yeah, my mom did a great job. I mean, she is an awesome lady, and she's still going. But she was able to make it happen from having no job to, we moved in back with our grandparents, and we were only really stuck in that situation financially for about 3 to 4 years. And she was able to kind of pull us out. So she did an amazing job at that, and still managed to raise 2 kids who have not really been in a whole lot of trouble.
Wow, listen to how you just say 3 to 4 years, and like for some that's a long time. That can be a long time. 3 months can be a long time. 6 months can be a long time.
Oh yeah, when you're in the storm, it feels like it's forever. But when you go back and look at the storm, you think, oh, it wasn't that bad, right?
You must have some mom.
She's amazing.
She's still alive?
She's still alive, yes. I talked to her on my way here.
Oh,
wow.
great.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Where does she live?
She lives in West Covina.
Uh-huh.
So this event has happened in your life, and your mom has pulled you guys through it. And was it your mom's decision, or what moved you to West Covina?
So when my father left us, we didn't have anything, right? We had to leave the house that we lived in. We moved into my grandparents' house, and it was tough. There was a lot of people living in a little house, right? So we slept on the couch or the living room or wherever we could. And it was my mom's dream to really pull us out of there. She would always say, I'm going to make it. I'm going to make it with my kids. My kids will make it. And she worked really hard. She got into the real estate industry, and she worked really hard and was able to kind of get out and bought her first house in 1995, and she's still there. She was paid off a couple years ago.
Wow. What a spirit.
Yeah. This, I don't want to jump the gun, but this common thread of our guests who are successful, like you can always trace it back to something in their life that has taught them, this determination and grit and overcoming, and they keep going. And, it's clear here that you've got, these things running in your life at a very young age, and then to be modeled by your mom is really awesome.
Yeah, we were fortunate in many ways, right? We tend to focus, I think, on the negative things that happen. But many times if we think that event caused this, that reshaped my entire life, or, and that's how I try to see it right now.
Yeah.
At least. It wasn't that way 15 years ago, let me tell you.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the easiest definitions of forgiveness or unforgiveness, both I would say, is unforgiveness is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to feel it. You just keep, thinking like, oh, I'm going to hold on to this pain, and that person who hurt me is going to be the one feeling it, but I'm the one that's feeling it.
Yeah.
Wow, that's very insightful. Yeah. And that's exactly what you said, Armando. That forgiveness was for yourself. Yeah.
Stop drinking the poison, right?
Yeah.
If you have unforgiveness in your heart for somebody. So awesome. Well, what's next in your journey, after landing in West Covina?
Well, high school and then college, I was fortunate enough to attend UCLA. And during college, I met a gal in Westwood that brought me into the mortgage business. Interestingly enough, my mom used to say, she was in the real estate business. She would say, I don't want you guys to be in the real estate business. It's horrible. Go get an education. And as soon as I could, I jumped right in it. And, talking about the fulfillment, for me, the fulfillment is not so much of here's your house. The fulfillment for me is being able to teach someone how to live differently, right? Because so many of us, our priorities are backwards, right? We're taught to buy the expensive shoes, the purses, the cars, and no one teaches us how to invest. No one teaches us how to save or really, live a better life. So my goal is not necessarily do one mortgage for one person today, but my goal is to help educate the clients forever. So we do things like we bring financial advisors to teach classes to all of our past clients once a month, or even CPAs or tax guys. We've brought estate planning lawyers to teach them about having a trust or doing a 1031 exchange. So these are all the things that they never taught us in school. And it's crazy, but most of us will never have the information, right? And we just live our entire lives just paycheck to paycheck. But if my goal is if I can just help one person think differently every single month, I'll change like hundreds of lives, right?
Yeah, that's a remarkable approach, because you are bringing this holistic financial setting to a customer or a client of yours. And I've gone through dozens of home closings, and nobody's ever taken the time to educate me. So it just seems to be quite a remarkable approach that you have. How did you learn to do that?
Well, I just figure we have experts, right? I know a handful of lawyers. I know a handful of CPAs. They have a whole lot of information that the consumer doesn't always have. So if I can just put them together, it's great. And quite honestly, I learn a lot too. So when I put these classes together, I'm there taking notes, and then I can share that with other people. But whatever's in your head, you'll never lose, right? Once you learn something, unless you forget it, but it can change you.
Do you work for yourself, or are you part of a larger company?
So I work for a company called Golden Empire Mortgage, but we run the branch kind of like a franchise. Mm-hmm. So it's a hybrid where they own the corporate and we own the little office.
So you're a part owner of that?
Just the office itself, the branch.
Mm-hmm.
You touched on the fulfillment part of what you do, and you sort of started the conversation about educating them. What do you get out of that? What is the fulfilling part of that?
So I'll tell you, I remember being young. I was maybe 11 or 12. And I overheard my mom talking to my grandparents about opportunities in this country. And I've seen this through my clients, because a lot of my clients are immigrants. But we come to this country as immigrants, and everyone comes for the same reason, right? We come for the opportunity, for the American dream. But most people, when they get here, it becomes a nightmare, right? We're not taught how to do anything, or even we're taught how to do just enough. And that's everyone, not just immigrants. We're taught how to do just enough to keep feeding the system. But we're rarely taught how to get out of the rat race. Right. And I think that if we can teach more people how to do that and build generational wealth, then, that for me means more, because I'll be long gone, but people will still be benefiting from what I taught them.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Armando, we ask each guest to bring an item of significance with them. What did you bring with you today?
So I brought this rosary. I don't practice the Catholic religion, but this rosary is very important to me. When my grandmother died in the Catholic church, when someone passes, they say a prayer, and I don't really know the logistics of it, but they hold one of these beads every time. My grandmother died in 2016. My youngest son is 13 now, so he was maybe 5 or 6. And we didn't know this, but he kept this from her funeral. And it was hanging on his bed. It's been hanging there forever. And one day I asked him, where did you get that? And he said, I got it from our funeral, and I've had it ever since. So for 6 years, it had so much meaning for him that he kept it, and I keep it on his bed, but I feel like it's mine. So
wow.
Yeah, it's the rosary. So yeah, each bead, you do a prayer with each bead. I grew up Catholic, so I've done the rosary hundreds of times. Yeah, you go through, sometimes it's penance. So you go to confession, and you're told to do a certain type of penance. Sometimes it's the rosary, and so you have to
wow.
do the rosary before you leave the church. But yeah, it depends on how bad your sins are. So my sins were pretty bad, I guess. But
Wow.
yeah.
I'm vaguely familiar with that. I wasn't, I didn't grow up Catholic, but I know that it has to do with that. And then from his response of having to do 100, I was like, okay, it must be some sort of punishment or something.
No, but it's not punishment. But it can be used as penance, a form of penance. But people will say the rosary not as punishment or not as penance. It's an affirmative act of love and faith. But I think of it as punishment because when I was a kid, I had to do penance, and yeah.
Wow. I think this is the second rosary we've had on the show.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
I think, Joseph had brought one. Joseph Del Toro.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he had brought one for his. So, okay, so you went to UCLA. Your mother was saying don't ever get into real estate or the real estate business. What did you do after college?
I got into the mortgage business during college.
Oh, during college?
During college.
And your mom was thrilled about that?
She flinched a little bit at first, but I became really good at it really fast. I would say within 2 years, I opened up a little mortgage broker office, and it was just, I didn't have anywhere to go from there. Before I did mortgages, I worked at a 7-Eleven. So it's my only 2 jobs, you know?
What makes
Wow.
you so good at it?
You know, I think in our business, it's very salesy. If you guys have ever talked to a realtor or a lender, most people have that commission breath, we call it, right? And for me, it's always been mission before commission. If we can't help them, we won't do a deal. And very early, I started getting a lot of referrals from clients. I would do a deal for someone, and I was very young too. I was 18 years old when I started, and I looked like I was 15. So it was relatively difficult, but because I helped people, they kept coming back. And it was just easy to keep going that way, you know? I think the hardest part in our industry is finding the clients or the referrals. I mean, right now it's challenging, don't get me wrong. But early in my career, it was just very easy to get those referrals, and I just always did a good job for people.
Wow, how do you at age 18, 19, 20 convince someone to trust you with, maybe their largest purchase in their life?
So I met a guy, he's still around, his name's Matthew Ferry, if anybody wants to look him up, brilliant guy. And I got lucky at an event. He said, find someone that you admire and take them to lunch. And I did. I asked him to go to lunch with me, and he said, you're very young. I would try to do as much as you can over the phone. Don't get face-to-face with people until they trust you. Because if they walk in and see a baby, they're going to walk out. So a lot of what I did at first was over the phone, and I spoke well, so it was easy. And then once they saw me, it was just like, hey, we're already done. Let's do it.
It's too late.
Wow. Okay, because you had to go to their signings, right? Or did you?
Back then, we did a lot of face-to-face. Now it's easier to do it through email and fax, or we don't even have fax anymore, but mostly email or Zoom. But back then, it was a lot of face-to-face.
And were they shocked?
Often. Yeah.
What did you say in that moment?
So, I've always asked people, what would you do? And one thing that I learned from a mentor early on, he said, don't use your numbers, use the company's. So I would tell people, my mentor is really smart. She's been in the business for 20 years, and she helps about 200 people a year. Everything's going to be overseen by her, and if you want to talk with her, you can. So it made it easy for me to kind of piggyback off someone else's experience. And it was true, right? Someone was overlooking everything because I didn't really know what I was doing back then. I just knew that I wanted to do a good job for people.
Well, I hear this thread of you seeking out the wisdom of someone who's more experienced, that you just automatically accepted that. Whereas some people, that's a hard lesson for them to get, and they often maybe don't get it until later on in life, or maybe they never get it. Where did you automatically think, okay, yes, this is a good way to gain knowledge? I'm going to go ask, and not only ask, but I'm going to trust and follow.
My stepdad, my mom remarried when I was maybe 14 or 15, and he made us read books, and I used to hate him for it. But I picked it up from a book somewhere. I remember the first book I read, I was 14, that he gave me was Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. Have you read that?
No.
I know it, yeah.
It's a great book. And I was annoyed before because I had to read, but now I thank him so much for it. I'm still very close to him. So somewhere in a book I read, and it just made sense, right? Like, if it makes sense to me and it's logic, I just do it. But if someone's already done it, why not take that shortcut and ask them for help? And most people will give you the help if you ask.
That to me is such an important message. Ask people for help. It's funny, I was just thinking about that this morning, how people are reluctant to ask for help. But just think how good you feel when you help someone. And anybody else is in that same position. They want to help you. And people are reluctant to ask for help. I don't know why.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of ego.
Yeah.
Sure. But, on the receiving end, it feels good to be asked for help, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's a little bit of ego too, but I get that.
Yeah.
So have you ever been turned down? Have you ever sought, the wisdom or advice of someone more experienced and they didn't want to give you that?
Yeah, absolutely. There's people that are very protective of their time, and they'll deny it, and that's okay. We just move on, right? There's somebody else that will help us. For the most part, I find that people that I've asked for help have helped me, and I've been very lucky to be around like some really smart people that I listen to, and probably sometimes that I should have listened that I hadn't.
Yeah. Well, that's such great advice, right? To anyone seeking to do some new adventure or whatever it is, find out from someone and ask them. Yeah. I guess people often, even just conversation is like going down, right? People are hesitant to engage someone in a conversation, and it's easier to send a text or put a comment or send a DM or something, whatever the terminology is with social media, right? Like we're sort of losing that ability as a society. And I guess now people are just gaining knowledge or wisdom in a 90-second TikTok or a 90-second reel, right? Like that's a way of people are getting information, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's something that you're also doing now, isn't it? I've seen, right?
I do.
Okay. So before we get into that though, you're now working on your own, doing this, and it's only the second job that you've ever had, and now it's that's pretty cool. So what's that journey been like? From saying, okay, now I'm going to do it. I'm having success right from the beginning. I feel good at this. How's that journey? Where does that journey go next?
Where does it go next?
Was it easy? Like how was 07, 08, 09?
Yeah, 07, 08, 09 was really tough, and kind of similar to what's happening in our industry now. We all went from doing really well and we thought we were on top of the world to the rug gets swept out from under us, and we're trying to figure out how to stand up again. So it's a second kind of cycle that I see. I feel like it's very similar, but I think that I was better prepared for the second one, right? The first one, I was still young, and financially I wasn't prepared for, my income to stop, and we were over leveraged on a lot of things. So yeah, it was rough back then. We struggled to make our payments. We had to give a car back because we couldn't make the payments on it. And I think that prepared us for the second time, right? Because we know it's a cycle. So we don't over leverage anymore. We're smarter with our money, and we're able to help others as well, so it worked out really nice.
Did you develop this idea of teaching from the beginning, or when did that come about?
So I was maybe 11 years old, and I mentioned earlier, I overheard my mom just kind of, I don't even know if she knows that I heard her. I've never actually told her, so she'll probably hear this and bring it up. But I heard her talking to my grandparents about just, she didn't know how, right? And she had no job when my father left, and she got a job working as a receptionist somewhere. She was making very little money, maybe $100 a week or something. You can't really raise two kids on $100 a week, even in 1992. And I just remember the struggles, financially, and she didn't know how. And quite honestly, even since then, my family's never really been good with money, right? Where we just live the way the world tells us to live. And most people live that way, and they just don't know it. But if we can find a better way and teach a better way, like, why wouldn't we? We're just too programmed to spend and never save, or even save the wrong ways, right? We're taught to put our money in the bank, and inflation eats up 8%, but the bank pays you, 0.5% in interest. It's just not smart.
So maybe I should have phrased that question differently. Had you been giving these classes and teaching your clients from the beginning, or when did you start instituting that as part of your regular business?
So I'll tell you, I didn't feel like I can teach it until I got there, right? So I can't teach people how to save money if I'm not good with saving money. So a few years ago, I joined a coaching program that really changed my perspective on saving, and that's when I started to learn how to invest in the stock market, how to use life insurance properly, because most people don't use it properly. And through that, I figure first I have to do it and prove that it works, and then I can teach it. Because I feel like too many times I get excited about something that I just learned, but I haven't mastered, and I try to teach people. That's just my personality. I want everyone to know. So with this, it was something that first I needed to get my finances straight, and then I can teach others how to do it.
I see. Okay. And that must have been exciting for you to start that. How was it received by your clients?
So I started doing it just kind of gradually. where I would put on a class and say, hey, I'm putting on a class with a financial planner. We used to do them all in person. It's a lot harder to get people there in person than it is on Zoom. So the first ones we had 4 or 5 people. And that's always my fear, that I put an event together and no one shows up. It was a great class. And then what I started to do is I started to call the clients that showed up to that and just ask them, are you implementing any, what are you doing? And you find that some do it and then some don't. But really the turning point right around that time, I met a lady who I never thought she'd buy a house. The credit was rough, a lot of debt, no money, her income was low. And I really just thought, like, I'm gonna meet with you and you'll be on your way. And she said to me, we immigrated here and it's my dream to buy a home for my parents. And that really like resonated with me, right? Because I immigrated here and all my background. She said, if you were in my shoes, what would you do? And I said something that I thought maybe it'll offend her, but it didn't. I said, I would find a new job because you're not making enough, right? And then I would pay off some of this debt and then I would do some of these things. And she did it. And a year and a half later, she went from making like 30 grand a year to 85.
Wow.
Right? And a year and a half later, she bought a house, right? So it changed my perspective from this person can never buy a house to everyone can buy a house if they follow my plan, right? So now my goal is teach everyone how to do it. And that's how that came about.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
What a story. Thank you for sharing that. I bet that woman is very
She sends
grateful.
us a lot of referrals.
Yeah, I mean, changing people's lives. I mean, that's really, very fulfilling, very impactful. Yeah, I'm sad that I didn't experience that level of joy, in doing that. But wow, what a amazing thing to be able to offer somebody. So, I mean, I've heard this thing, and let me know what you think of it. Was even if you put something out there and one person responds, and then if you generate your solution to help even just one person, if it's the person that you're actually trying to help, like you're creating something that is eventually going to help everybody. But, does that resonate with you, or have you heard that concept before?
Yeah, it's like we say, when one heals, we all heal, right? Like when you heal yourself, everyone around you heals.
Mm-hmm.
In like the spiritual sense.
Sure. Armando, we're going to take a quick break and we're going to come back and get into some of the things that you're doing now with your business and things that maybe you look forward to in the future.
At Warmouth Law, they believe that just because you speak a foreign language, come from a different culture, or simply don't know how to navigate the legal system, that should not prevent you from compensation from injury or receiving benefits. Their multicultural staff have been helping SGVers like you for over 38 years. Visit law888.com or call them at 626-784-7017 and tell them you heard about them on this podcast.
All right, we're back with Armando. During the break, you had mentioned something. I didn't want to touch on that. I'm thankful that Scott had brought it back up. Commission breath.
Is that a term of art in the real estate industry?
It's something we say a lot, and I don't know where I heard it, but you can think of those salesy people where every time they talk, they want to sell you something.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I think something inside of me, like I can sense they're not really genuine, always building and leading up to something, right?
To the sale.
I love that though. Yeah, as soon as I hear that, it immediately is clear to me. Commission breath.
Yeah, it gives you a very clear picture, doesn't it?
It does. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Armando, before we move on, we've been introducing this segment of our show where we ask questions from this card game. It was one of the former guests of the show who had created this game. They're just to provoke thought and insight. You're welcome to answer one, both, or none of them. So here we go. The game is called Like You cards. I try to skip over some of the more like deeper penetrating ones. So has anyone ever thrown you a surprise party, or have you ever been in love?
Well, I'm married. If I don't answer that second one, I'll be on the couch.
Yeah.
But actually, I met the love of my life at a Taco Bell.
Oh,
Wow.
In 2002, and we've been married since 2004.
Wow.
Congratulations. Yeah.
I keep going to Taco Bell and I have not found the love of my life yet. But, other than the, gordita or something.
Right.
But
wait. Okay. So can you share that story? How does that come to be?
Yeah, so I worked at a 7-Eleven, and across the street there was a Taco Bell, and a friend of mine used to work at Taco Bell. And I went in there. I saw a girl that I thought was cute in the drive-thru, and I didn't message him back then, but I talked to him and said, "Hey, who is that girl?" And for a long time, I would go in there and just order a soda just to get through that drive-thru, and it wasn't happening. But maybe about 6 months into it, she was going to be leaving Taco Bell. She wasn't going to work there anymore. So she finally said, "Oh yeah, here's my phone number." And at that point, I was dating someone else, but it just kind of worked out, and yeah, we've been together ever since. It's been great.
Wow, congratulations.
Yeah, that is really a sweet story.
And the surprise party, probably not. Maybe when I was a kid.
Okay. Well, I don't think anyone has ever thrown me a surprise party. Actually, in my birthday just passed, and Novelo asked to reschedule the meeting, and I was like, okay, sure, no problem. And so I walked in there, and they're all like, "Happy birthday!" And I was
I heard afterwards that they had a party for you.
Yeah, and I was like, "Is this why you rescheduled the meeting?" So yeah, they did throw me a little.
Was it a
surprise
nice
thing.
party?
Well, I had to go, so I left immediately. But I came back and I had lunch with them, and it was really nice. It was really touching that they had done that.
Wow,
yeah, I had no idea, so it was a complete surprise. And have I been in love? Yeah, absolutely. I'm in love now. My wife and my children. For sure, yeah.
I don't think I've had a surprise party either. I can't think of one other than maybe in the office, although I can't specifically remember one, but yeah. And in love, boy, that's a difficult one because, well, without getting philosophical about it, probably, well,
you can say, do you love your children?
I love my children.
No, there you go.
Yeah, I love my children.
All right,
yeah.
Scott's been in love. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Armando, back to your story and your business. I see that you're active on social media and you're doing these. It looks to be educational type stuff, content. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah. So the goal is just to give people ideas that they can implement, that they can use. They can just start to think differently, right? So we'll give ideas on investment. We'll give ideas on how to buy houses with low money down, how to fix your credit, how to improve your credit. And again, it's just things that we were never taught in school, right? Tax hacks, how to take advantage of tax code. Not necessarily giving advice, but just saying, hey, this exists. Talk to your tax guy about it, right? Because most people just don't know that what's out there. So we try to bring them 30, 60 seconds on short reels, give information that will ultimately get people to live a better financial life, if you will.
I'm curious, are we in a market now where maybe you will start to see more of owner-financed sales, owners carrying a loan as opposed to going to a loan mortgage?
We haven't seen it yet, but I think something that a lot of people are missing is assumable loans. A lot of government loans like FHA loans or even VA loans, they're assumable. So if somebody took a mortgage 3 years ago at a 2.5% interest rate, you can come in and buy that house, assume that loan at the 2.5% interest rate, and then pay the difference either through a second or cash.
What?
Yeah, and most people don't know that. So I think that's an opportunity that's going to be coming in the next few months, assuming that you have a seller who is willing to play ball with it.
And what's the difficulty or obstacle there?
It's not that difficult. I mean, we haven't done them in a long time because people were just not assuming loans for the last 15 years. But essentially what you would do is if I have a mortgage that you want to assume, we would get with my mortgage company. You would apply to qualify with them, and then they would assume the loan. And the beautiful thing is if I've paid 5 years on that 30-year mortgage, you would assume it just with the time remaining. So you would have a 25-year loan and at the whatever that interest rate is. It's a great opportunity. A lot of agents, I think they don't talk about it or just people don't know about it.
I've never heard of that before. Have you heard of that, Scott?
No, I have, yeah. But it's a kind of creative financing that hasn't been necessary or hasn't really been allowed in the last 15 years because the market was so strong, right? And you were seeing a lot more, I think, all cash purchases and but it's a creative financing type of approach that just hasn't been out there.
It just hasn't been necessary because it's been easy to finance. But when rates start to go up, then you start to see adjustable rates come back and, things like temporary buy downs and then assuming loans.
I'm interested in a solution. This is personal stuff, right? In buying, it's their homes, but they're on government land in a national forest and banks won't finance it. So it has to be full cash. But I've heard of some companies that provide this and they're the financiers. Have you ever heard of this? Or have you ever heard of those types of properties?
No, not those, but we are seeing more and more leased land in certain rural areas where you own the house but not the land, and we could finance those. So if there's something similar to that, it might be an option.
Yeah, these are, I think it does say leased land because it's leased land. They don't, I don't know the specifics, but
You may just need a lender who will lend on leased land, and there's like certain caveats to it. Like they want at least the if it's a 30-year mortgage, then the lease has to be at least 30 years. Right, so that if you have a 10-year lease and a 30-year mortgage, it may not work.
I see. I think it's like 99.
Yeah, then you should be okay.
Yeah.
We've done a couple of those. I don't know if it's the national land, but we've done some where it's other like lease land.
What are you looking for or looking towards in the future with your company and what you're doing? Are you looking to expand, grow, do something new other than the educational part? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, so right now our goal is get better, not bigger, right? For a long time we were trying to expand and get as big as possible, but I think that if we remain at the levels that we were in the last couple of years, but we do it better, then we'll be able to work less, if you will, and everyone will have a nicely balanced life, everyone on the team, and we can continue to grow.
And what does your team look like? Are they all loan officers? Do you take on new people who want to learn this industry?
We just started doing that. We actually had maybe 6 or 7 people last year that tried to go through a program, but we had some challenges with people passing the test. But I do have an apprentice program for someone who's looking to become a loan officer. There's a guy that works with me now. He's been in the business 3 years and he's killing it. And when he came in, he had never done a mortgage before, and he just had no experience. He worked somewhere else and didn't have any training. So he followed the process and he's doing really well right now. He'll probably be in the top 1% of loan officers in the next couple of years. So just in 5 years, he was able to do that. So I'd love to have people that are eager to learn, that want to get into the business, I'll take on, but it has to be the right person.
If you could boil down what are the 2 most important skills to have to make you a really good loan officer, what would those be?
I don't know if it's a skill, but I think it's truly the desire to help people. I think in our industry, because a lot of people make a lot of money per transaction, so it just becomes, and we hear it, right? You guys have probably heard people say it's a numbers game. But when we start to focus on the numbers and stop to focus on the family, it changes everything. So I think you always have to remember, in our business at least, this is someone's family, their livelihood, their home, probably the biggest investment of their life. And we can't think, oh, this is just another file or another loan is what we call them. Right? So I think that's the biggest issue in our industry is when there's not enough business, people are desperate for business. And when there's a lot of business, people are trying to take as much as they can and they forget about the individual. So very often we're more focused on ourselves than the person we're helping.
Wow, what an answer. It's almost as if you were prepared that before the show and written it out, but that's an amazing answer. Yeah. And that's the type of person that I would feel good to work with, that has that sort of mindset and belief about what they do. Absolutely. Yeah. We're going to move on to the final segment of our show, Armando, where we get to learn some more about you and the things you like in the San Gabriel Valley.
Armando, we'd like to talk about your SGV3, and that would be 3 memorable places or activities or events that you've experienced.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Kaiser in Baldwin Park is probably one of the most memorable places for me. Both of my kids were born there. So it's huge, right? The ducks there. Another place that maybe people don't think of often is Whittier Narrows Racetrack. You guys ever heard of it?
Never.
Bicycle BMX track.
I think someone did comment on that once before.
Whittier Narrows Racetrack?
Well, I think Whittier Narrows, the big park, right? Maybe that generally. But so specifically, there is a bike racetrack there?
There's a BMX bike track.
A velodrome or?
No, just like a BMX, like jumps. And you guys remember the old Rad movie?
Wow.
Yeah.
What do you like about that?
It was just something that I was obsessed with when I was a kid. And I only got to ride there maybe 4 or 5 times, but it was just a dream to be able to ride there and race. And I still drive by there sometimes just to look at it.
So that's right off of Rosemead, is that right?
Yeah, off the 10 freeway, or the 60 freeway.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. And so it's on both sides of Rosemead.
The park itself is. The track is kind of hidden in the back area of one of the parks, yeah.
Okay, yeah. I don't think I've seen that.
Yeah, that's where they do the airplanes, where they fly the airplanes. If you keep going on the backside, there's a track there.
Okay, I see it now. Wow, I never knew that existed. That's really cool.
Yeah, Whittier Narrows Racetrack. It was just big for me. And then obviously my mom's house, we lived there since 95. there's a tree that my grandma planted. It's in Mexico, they call them limas. It's kind of like it looks like a lemon, but it's sweet, kind of like an orange. I should have brought you guys some. And I don't know where she got one day, but she took a seed and planted it. And there's a tree there. It's been there for maybe 20 years.
Wow.
So it's really
neat.
cool.
Yeah.
My mom was thinking about selling the house a couple years ago. And all I can think of is, no, I want that tree.
Yeah.
So that's very memorable to me in West Covina as well.
Wow. All those are great. Yeah. I think all three of those are very, well, they're certainly unique and very special and just in the way that they're meaningful to you.
Yeah.
Not only were they unique to the show, but yeah, really cool. Well, Armando, thank you so much for coming on the show and for sharing your story with us and our listeners. If someone wants to get a hold of you, what's the best way to do that?
You can follow me on Instagram at Armando_Novelo_.
Awesome. And is there a website or an email address, some other way to get a hold of you, or is Instagram the best way?
I'll give my cell phone number out if anybody wants to find me.
Oh my God, okay.
Yeah. It's 626-422-6411. You can text me there.
Awesome. Well, Armando, I really enjoyed this show. I really enjoyed getting your perspective and the story of what sort of shaped you and the things that you do with your business. To me, it's no wonder why you are successful. Yeah, that's just the way you're approaching so many things. I think that's going to resonate with a lot of people, and whoever you are sharing this story with. Absolutely, I think it is. Yeah. So thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, there you go, SGVers. I really enjoyed that episode. I would hope that you did too, and got something from Armando and his experience, and just what an amazing story of what he's built his company, his business around the value of really helping people. And if you've gotten anything from that story, that's absolutely what I've gotten from it. So if you like this type of content, please don't forget like, share, and subscribe. Check out the full catalog of episodes on our website, www.sgvmasterkey.com. And until next week, we'll see you then.
You've been listening to the SGV Master Key Podcast. Our passion is the small businesses and the people that make up the San Gabriel Valley, and it's our honor to have them on the show. We hope you've enjoyed it. Make sure to like, rate, and review. The show is produced by Russell Mano, edited by Victoria Allers of Kind Monster Productions. Thanks for listening, and see you next time on the SGV Master Key Podcast.
Mother, no, kind of mother.